So we're going to start seated this evening. This evening's class plan is called the In-Betweeners. So it's the everything in between rather than focusing on one thing. So we've got a selection of shoulders, chest, spine, hips, feet to stretch out. Just spend this first moment just lengthening the spine, making sure that that feels nice and long, getting happy in our seating position, and then we're going to take some simple neck half circles. So we're going to drop the chin in towards the chest, take the breath in and lift the chin over towards my left shoulder, and exhale, let the eyes run back down to the floor, and then turn the head gently and lift the eyes over the right shoulder, and exhaling back down again. So just moving very slowly with your own breath. Could be faster or slower than mine, that's not a problem, but we are trying to keep the breath smooth and moving. And therefore, with a bit of luck, the neck is pretty much continuously moving as well. Really a very small pause when we go from lifting up to the side and coming back into the center. Anybody with a stiff neck, stiff top of the shoulders, this is a really good way and safe as well to stretch out those muscles and tendons. Come down into the center and let the head lift. Start to roll the shoulders around gently, so shoulder shrugs. Now, I would class these as enthusiastic in that I am letting the spine flex and extend as well. I'm almost exaggerating it a little bit, I guess you would say. And how that feels. And roll the opposite way. Relax from there. We're going to make our way gently down into child's pose, but I'm going to take child's pose with the bolster underneath my body, long ways down the mat. So I'm going to take the knees wide, slide the bolster in until I get to a point where I think as I bring my body down, my chin and my head are going to be able to be supported on the bolster. And you can bring your hands underneath as well, or you can take them towards the back of the mat, whatever feels good for you. The idea is to get this to really be supporting the ribs and the chin and the head, as we said. So it just allows the spine to be flatter and longer than perhaps it is normally in child's pose. And therefore the shoulders and the spine and the nervous system can all relax a little bit deeper. And I'm going to slowly lift back up out of that. I remember the first time I tried taking child's pose with a bolster underneath, and it was a bit of a revelation. It really changed the pose for me. I'm going to take the block and that towards the back of the mat a little bit. So I'm going to sit onto that and come into butterfly pose. So the soles of the feet come together. Then you decide really how far forwards or close you want the feet to be. The further away, the easier it is for the knees to drop out to the side, the more you can open the groin. I find that sort of having the feet pretty much as far away as I can do, but still be keeping the soles together is the way that feels good for me. But if you bring them in, that's fine. It's not a problem if that feels comfy. We'll lean forwards gently. And we're just going to take the hands to a position where they're not really reaching forward super strong, but at least they're moving out away from the body. So I'm really not putting any weight into the legs. There's probably can't see it, but there's a gap between my arms and my shins. Gradually letting the head relax and get to the point where I can start to let the back of the neck soften and the head just rolls down very gently. So I'm feeling a really big stretch all the way from the base of my spine, both sides of the spine into the upper part of my back, across the neck and into the base of the skull. And really making sure all of that starting to stretch out. As well as obviously the legs. Breathing is a little compromised here. Do your best to keep it smooth and regular. We'll draw the belly in as we exhale and press the fingers into the floor to lift back up. Again, taking that nice and easy. Now I am going to come into saddle pose. I'm not going to be able to just turn that block, portrait and use that. But if the idea of sitting down onto the block and having the feet out wide as you sit the sitting bones down onto the block and that stretch into the ankles is a little bit more than you'd like, then you could use the end of the bolster, but the majority of the bolster would be behind you. I'm just going to sit here for a moment and see how this feels. Giving the legs a little bit of a chance. The calf muscles I find and the tops of the quads naturally tighten up when we come into this pose to begin with. So giving it sort of 30 seconds or so, 45 seconds, just gives it a little bit of time for those muscles to ease off and start to relax. Now we'll slowly take the arms out to the side. I'll bring the left arm over and the right arm over the top to come into eagle arms. And let the elbows sink in towards the body and the shoulders roll a little bit towards the back of the mat. And now release the arms. Take them out wide. Cross them over the opposite way. And again, let those elbows sink into the body and the shoulders back. Now, I do appreciate that it is very strong around the tops of the shoulders, the front of the shoulders, down the arms. But that is the reason why we're trying to stretch them out. And letting go is easier said than done. It takes some consistent effort of exhaling and trying to connect your mind into those areas that are tight and seeing if it's possible to release. And then we can release from there. Just a moment to let the shoulders recover. And then gently on the inhale, take the hands out to the side. I'm just going to float the arms up towards the sky and see if we can bring the palms together. And then exhale, hands back down to the floor. Inhale up. And exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. And we'll bring the palms of the hands onto the thighs and let ourselves settle. So hopefully we can feel a little bit of a difference in the calves and the front of the thighs. There's a possibility that all sense of feeling might have disappeared completely. That's always a possibility. Now I'll take a little breath from here and let myself use the fingertips to bring myself back onto all fours. I'm going to move the bolster off to the side, so it's a little bit out of the way. Put the toes underneath. And then I'm going to just lift the knees gently away from the floor, walking the fingers in. So I'm coming into a squat. And I'm going to just move the block behind and then allow the heels to rest down. Now, you need to try to discover what is a comfortable position for your feet and your knees. So possibilities are that both feet and knees point out to the side, or that one or the other points out to the side. Whatever feels easiest, most comfortable, most natural in your ankles and your knees. And you can continue to keep the fingertips on the floor if you wish, or just rest your arms if you're able to on top of your knees. Okay, find a nice balance point. Now, it's important to say that although the Zoom camera won't pick this up, it looks like I'm perfectly still. The reality is that my body is kind of swaying around a little bit. The weight is shifting very marginally through one foot to the other, from the toes into the heels. Muscles in the spine are lengthening, so that gives me a whole different possibility of movements as well to work with. The diaphragm is kind of drawing in, and the breath is getting used to working through a different place. So there's a multitude of reasons why you've got these minor changes in the body and therefore the position, and you're kind of moving around a little bit. So it's not about being absolutely rock solid still. It's about being comfortable in the place. The front of the ankles will feel like they are catching fire. And I started with my bottom probably an inch or two off of the block. Gradually, my bottoms are just starting to touch. I'll take the hands behind. Allow myself to lengthen the legs out, which is going to feel like a bit of a shocker. And I'm going to take the legs out in front and slide forwards off of that block. From here, I'm just going to roll the ankles around a few times and let that kind of stinging feeling that is probably down here in the front of your ankles disappear. And then I'll take a little breath from here, draw the flesh out, lean forwards just a little bit so I'm onto the front edge of the sitting bones. And I'm going to take my left foot and bring that over to the right, and then try and bring the heel back close towards the hip so that I can get the thigh very much touching the other thigh. So it's almost squeezing the thighs together. And you notice that I took a little lift as well. From here, I'm going to turn my body towards the left side. So I'm just using the arm a little bit to counter lever. I have the left hand behind me on the fingertips. And I'm trying to relax both legs. So if you feel that you are finding that a little bit tricky, I find wriggling my toes really helps to let the muscles relax. This is a half shoelace pose with a twist added in for fun. Now, hopefully the lower leg is able to feel the calf and the heel and maybe some of the thigh touching the ground. And we'll release from there. Take the leg out. And then move across to the opposite side. You might find it easier on one side than the other, or sometimes you have to kind of manhandle yourself around a little bit, or woman handle into position. And then when you feel comfy, you're going to just turn to the right this time. Some rotation through the spine, get a little bit of stretch in the rear shoulder. We'll try and relax the legs. I find it reasonably easy to turn the bottom leg off fairly quickly, but getting the top leg to relax takes a little bit more concentration. I have to kind of direct my mind to that leg, work out which one I can actually feel, and then see if I can encourage it to release. And then we can release from there. Getting the legs out. I'm going to move the block off to the side. And shuffle my bum towards the front of the mat, knees high, using the hands to roll down. To make my way into banana pose. So first of all, just lengthening the spine out and the legs down the mat. Taking the hands towards the sky. Going to take hold of my left wrist with the right hand, and then slowly let the hands drop behind the head to the floor. Going to wriggle the shoulders around to let the hands get as close to the floor as possible. And the spine as low to the ground as it can be. I'm going to wiggle the shoulders towards the right. Let the head turn in the same direction. We turn a little bit for the pelvis and the hips to settle back down to the ground if they kind of moved off. And then when you feel ready in your own time, just slide the feet out towards the right side as well. And you can cross the ankles over. Some people that feels perfectly okay to do straight away. Other people like to wait a little bit. Some people it doesn't feel great. A lot of people that have had a history of sciatic issues don't find crossing the leg benefits. That might just be students that I've come across, or that might be a generalization. A bit tricky to say. If you have had problems and you try to cross the ankles and it doesn't feel great, just simply bring the foot back. Allow the pelvis to settle. So you can feel both sides of the pelvis flat to the floor. Very relax as well. Come back into the center. And when you're ready, we'll cross the grip of the hands to the opposite side. Shoulders over. Let ourselves settle. And when it feels ready, you take the legs, one leg at a time out to the side edges of the mat, over to the left side as well. And option to cross. And, some people are even able to cross on one side but not on the other. If you feel that feels natural to do that, then fine. Do that and know that what you're doing is feeling good in your body, and that is 99.9% correct. Hopefully starting to feel some stretch and opening down the side of the body. Being able to detect the compression in the lower spine, that left side. Back into the center. And the feet back out as well, and the hands down by the side of the body. I'm going to draw the heels in towards my bottom. Allow my left leg to lift up towards the sky in a moment. I'm going to take the flat block, just place that behind the back of the head. I just find that in this next pose a little bit easier. So taking the left leg up, once that block's in place, and then crossing the thighs over and letting the foot down. And to slowly draw the knees in towards my body. And start to turn the feet out to the outside edges of their respective side. And set hands onto the shins. Draw the knees in a little closer. Start to see if I can work my hands down towards the ankles and the feet out towards the edges. And I'm going to let the knees really hug in towards the body. So I'm taking cow face leg pose, but in a supine position. Now you might be able to take the hands and lightly cusp underneath the bottom of the heels and find that to be a comfortable place. If that feels like it's overstretching the outside edge of the ankles, then come back and hold the shins. And the heels in terms of height from the floor, it's just a comfortable setting for you to work with. There's a lot of rotation in the thighs obviously going on in this pose. Release the legs, feet to the floor, arm across. Take a moment. Begin to take the right leg up. Cross it over, bring the foot down. And then when you feel ready, you're going to lift the knees gently in towards the body, taking the feet wide. And the knees draw in towards the body. You're going to give that a little bit of help. And slide the hands down the shins or moving in towards the ankles. And allow the knees to progressively move in towards your body. You'll find that that really does ease things up. And release again from there. Untangle the legs. Rig out the hips a little bit. And we're going to come into a pose known as the cat's tail. So I'm going to roll onto my right side. Still going to have the block with me. One hand on top of the other, hand stretched out in front. So at this point, the knees are bent and out in front of me. My heels are more or less in line with my body. I'm going to straighten the top leg and then swing that foot out to the front, in front of me, with a straight leg and the foot touching the floor. I'm going to slide the bottom leg away from me so that the knee is more in line with my torso. And then I'm going to draw that top hand across as I roll my shoulder down onto the floor. A little bit of a wriggle to make some space, and see if I can find the foot behind and draw the heel in towards the body. You can turn the head away from the front hand if you wish, or you can look to the ceiling, or you can look towards the outstretched hand. Your choice. And then from that front leg, come back in, release the back. Roll gently onto our spine as we untangle ourselves. Roll over to the second side. Away from the camera this time. Knees bend out in front. I'll lengthen the front leg out so the foot is onto the floor. Draw the bottom knee away from you, so towards the back side of you. Allow yourself to find that foot. And then begin to gently shoulders down towards the floor. Settle and ease your way in. more release from that side. And bring ourselves back flat to the floor. And take a little breath from here and use my outstretched leg to draw the bolster back in. I'll lengthen my legs out. I'm going to roll the bolster gently over onto my right side. Let's bring that through. And then I'm going to draw the left knee high and the right leg is just lengthened out. Arms are out to the sides. I'll bring a little bit of a shimmy of the hips over towards the left as I bring the left foot on top of the right thigh, and then rolling gently over. I'm going to try and bring that knee and my ankle onto the bolster for a little bit of support. Just taking that gentle little twist. And you choose which direction you'd like my head to face. Work on the rotation in the spine, which is partly why we've used the bolster under the leg. You don't want to overstretch the outside of the hip muscles and then start to affect how the spine is able to rotate because we're restricting ourselves in some way. And then we'll move gently back out of that. Take ourselves into our final side of our yin poses. Let's flick slowly the bolster over to the other side. And bring the right heel in. Lift the hips out towards the right a little bit. Bring that right foot on top of the left thigh. Roll the body over. So the shoulders stay flat to the floor. You can gently sort of wriggle around and lift yourself into position. Until you feel perfectly comfortable. Again, try to let every muscle in your body relax. Because of the differences in the anatomy given by the organs being different from side to side, you can find twists feel different from one side to the other. The degree of rotation, how the ribs feel against the floor, etc., can all feel very different sometimes between one side of the body and the other. We're just really learning how to accept that our bodies have shapes that they are finding easy or like, and then there are some shapes that our body not necessarily likes every day of the week, and then possibly some poses which will take a great deal of time and practice before they start to feel natural in the body. It will come eventually. We'll take a last breath here and let ourselves roll back onto the mat. I'm going to move the bolster out to the side a little bit further, still having the arms outstretched, and I'm going to bring the soles of my feet close into the body so the knees are high, but as wide as my mat. As long as that feels comfortable, it's as wide as you can allow yourself to be. And some mats are wider than others, so whatever feels right. At this moment, we're letting the legs roll into the center line and waiting for them to touch. I'm going to scissor the legs gently from one side to the other, flowing with my breath as we start to warm into the yang practice. Taking a breath in, and then exhaling over to my right side and letting the legs roll out and move on to the side edges of the feet. Move as low as I can on one breath. I inhale them back up to the center. And I roll them over to the opposite side. And you might like to roll the head with you, or you might like to roll it in the opposite direction, or just keep your chin facing towards the sky, whatever feels comfortable. And give the legs for the last time. Over to the left. Let the arms roll over to the same side. Press the hands into the floor as a lift and gently back up. So coming into a sitting posture, moving the block off to the side. I'm going to draw myself up onto all fours. So you can cross the ankles over or any other way that feels comfortable to come into the same position. Put the hands underneath the shoulders. Take a moment to spread the fingers out, see how that feels. You can roll it a little bit from side to side. And I'm going to tuck the toes underneath and move into down dog. So just take a breath in, roll the shoulders back, and lift the hips high. And step your down dog out to the stance that feels most comfortable. You can pedal the legs if that feels good, or you can keep them still, your choice. Either way, we're going to try and press the hands down into the floor and push the hips up and back, drawing the belly in, letting the shoulders open. I'm going to bring the feet so that they come onto the center line at the back of that in our down dog. And I'm going to come into pigeon pose. So I'm going to draw my left knee forwards and slide it to the outside of my left wrist, bringing the heel underneath the groin, and then just rolling the right foot further away. If that's a little bit strong on the wrists, you can come onto the knuckles, but I'm going to try and roll the shoulders back a little bit, draw the chest up, pull the belly in, let the hips sink, lengthen the back leg, press the thigh and shin on that leg down into the floor. Let's on the back foot. Roll the shoulders back, draw the belly in, and lift the hips back into the down dog. Allow myself to bring the feet back onto the center line, so I'm back in that starting position. And draw the right knee in, bring it forwards, outside of the wrist, heel under the groin. Walk the back foot as far back as I can. And then bootlaces to the ground. Roll the belly in, roll the shoulders back, and lift out of the pelvis as you let the hips sink to the floor. And start to work into that back leg, pressing down gently into the floor. So a busy old pose, lots of things to do. And then we'll tuck toes underneath from the back foot. Draw the belly in, lift the knee, move ourselves back into the down dog. Forwards into plank and let the knees come to the floor, keeping them in a narrow setting. And then sit back into child's pose, bringing the head down to the floor. And inhale, we'll lift the spine back up and move into tabletop, drawing the chest forwards as we take cow pose. Go through the cat pose as we let the spine lift up and round towards the sky, and then press back into child's pose. We'll come back up again. And exhaling all the way back. Inhale forwards and up. One last time, lifting forwards. Come back into neutral. Now I'm going to allow the feet to come round towards the front of the mat. And I'm going to take a supported bridge. So I'm going to bring the bolster back underneath the thighs, having the feet wider than the hips, and just wriggling the bottom in towards the bolster and the heels likewise, using the hands to support. And bring myself down to the floor gently. Make sure I'm happy with the way that the shoulders and the spine feel. And then I'm going to take the feet out a little wider. So again, just waiting for the toes, in my case, to feel the edge of the mat. Then take a little breath, draw the belly in, and press the back of the elbows down into the ground. So the back of the arms press into the floor as I lift the hips up, and then let the hands move forwards to find the bolster and wriggle it underneath my pelvis, and let the pelvis settle down. So once I feel safe on the bolster, stop moving around, and the legs are kind of rocking in a little bit towards the center, hopefully. And take the hands up towards the sky, and let them drop behind me to the floor. Hands a little wider on the shoulders. And try and let the muscles in my shoulders, across the chest and upper back relax and soften down towards the floor. And I'm going to do the same with the middle of the back, front of the chest, down towards them, just a little bit below the navel, and to the back of the pelvis. See if I can let that release. You might notice that you sink a little closer to the floor. Then I'll start to let the buttocks and the front of the hips release. Same for the thighs and hamstrings. So yeah, try and relax the feet and the lower limbs completely. And just breathe. And we'll start to bring the hands back alongside the body. We draw the feet in a little closer so that I can get a bit of purchase, draw the belly in, lift the hips just enough to slide the bolster out from beneath my bottom so that I can bring my bum right down to the floor. And then I'm going to roll the soles of the feet in towards the center and let the knees out wide. So I'm in Supta Baddha Konasana, recline cobbler's pose. My legs are completely supported by the block underneath. So the bolster underneath. I'll take the block underneath the back of the head because I find that more comfortable in my neck and shoulders. And then letting the hands out by the side as I come into the evening's version of Shavasana. Beginning to wiggle my fingers and toes, allowing myself to breathe a little deeper. And take a stretch out. This feels good. And draw a knee the time in towards the body for a gentle hug. next exhale, I'm going to roll gently over to my right side, keeping the knees in towards the body, keeping the breath on the floor. To exhale, use the hands to press down to lift smoothly back up to an easy sitting posture, using whichever props you prefer. Spine lengthen out. And carefully bring the hands in towards our heart. Taking the breath in, closing the eyes, letting the chin drop as I begin to slowly exhale, letting the belly draw to the spine, and sealing our practice for the evening. As the breath comes back in, I'll let that build the spine for me. Eventually letting the head lift, and the eyes open. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed. See you on again, a mat very soon.